here. We're coming to the end of our first series of Let's Go Fishing, and in this final episode of the first series, we're going to get out on the water, cast our baits, and hopefully hook, play and land some fish. And then we're going to look at what to do with our catch, particularly how to treat it humanely, ethically and sustainably so that we can all fish for life. But before we do that, I just wanted to quickly explain to you what the drag is on your reel and how it works. The drag, or slipping clutch as it's also called on a spinning reel, is activated via this knob on the front. It's a mechanism that allows a hooked fish to pull line from the reel at a preset pressure. This helps prevent the line from breaking or the hook from pulling out or bending. You can adjust this drag quite easily, tightening it or loosening it using the knob on the front of the spool. You should set the drag every time you go fishing and check it from time to time while you're fishing. Set it tight enough so that it takes a little bit of effort to pull line off the spool, but not so tightly that the line starts to cut into your hands or feels like it's going to break. Okay, that feels about right, and I can always adjust it later out on the water if I think that it's either too loose or too tight. Now, another tool that's really handy to have when you're fishing is one of these. It's called a landing net, and it's used to lift the fish out of the water. It's particularly handy if you're in a boat or on a jetty or on a fairly steep bank a little bit high from the water. Now, the best way to use a landing net is to steer the fish towards the partially submerged net and swim it in, rather than swatting wildly at it and chasing it. Remember, we're not catching butterflies. If you're careful and calm, you can land some really large fish with a landing net, even things like this big Spanish mackerel. Wow, how good's that? Okay, we're ready to catch a fish now, even if it might not be quite as big as that lovely mackerel. The first thing to do is to get our baits out into the water using the casting techniques that we covered in the previous episode. After you've cast your bait out and reeled in a little to recover any slack, pick the line up with your finger ahead of the reel so that you can feel for bites. You might also see bites as movements in the line or twitches of the rod tip. When you feel a good strong bite, strike by lifting the rod tip and winding the reel. Once a fish is hooked, stay calm and try to keep a tight line and a bend in your rod all the time. Play or fight the fish smoothly. If the fish isn't too big, you should be able to lift it from the water and swing it in like this. Be careful of any spikes or teeth the fish might have. Use a wet towel to hold it if you're unsure. Remove the hook and quickly decide whether you plan to keep the fish or let it go. If you're going to release the fish, handle it as little as possible and get it back into the water quickly. Remember, fish can't breathe out of the water. Sometimes, especially if your hook's a little bit small or you're a bit slow to strike, a fish might swallow the baited hook too deeply for it to be easily removed without causing injury to the fish. If this happens and you want to let the fish go, use your scissors to cut the line as close to the fish's mouth as possible and then get it straight back into the water. It's got a much better chance of survival that way. Eventually you'll hook something bigger. When you do, try to stay calm and play the fish smoothly. It might even pull line against the drag. This one's almost big enough to call for the landing net, but it's well hooked and the anglers decided to lift it straight out using the rod and swing it in. It's a lovely yellowfin bream, but it always pays to carefully measure the catch first. Yep, it's almost 28 centimetres, well and truly legal in the waters where it was taken. Good job. Okay, so we've caught a legal fish that we want to keep and eat. What do we do with it now? The best idea is to kill it quickly and humanely. It's better for the fish and it'll taste nicer too. There are a couple of ways to do this, and the first one is to hit the fish firmly on the top of the head with a hard, heavy object like this rock. 2 hits should do it. The fish is dead. Another way is to use a method called ikijimi, which is a Japanese term, where you use a sharp spike like this modified screwdriver or a knife and push it straight into the brain of the fish and twist it. It kills it instantly. But you need to know exactly where to insert the spike, and that varies from one type of fish to another. Luckily, there are some good websites and apps that can help you learn these important things. If you're unsure about Icky Jimmy, you're probably better off to kill the fish by hitting it on the head and then cut through this area under the gills with a sharp knife, being really careful not to cut yourself in the process. This will help drain the blood out of the fish's flesh, which improves its flavour as well. Once you've killed and bled the fish, you need to keep it as cool as possible. The very best way to do this is to place the dead fish in a slurry made with ice and salt water. For the best results, you'll need to clean or gut and gill your catch within an hour or two of landing it, and that's something we can look at in a future series of Let's Go Fishing. But if you're not comfortable with the whole process of killing, cleaning and keeping fish, you can always choose to let them go, and lots of people do that. If you stick to the law, that choice is really yours to make. Fishing is so much fun. I've been passionate and excited about it since I was a little kid myself, and that excitement and passion never fades. I hope you've really enjoyed this series and that it helps you to become a better angler. I might even run into you out on the water one day. Until then, this is Starlo wishing you tight lines.